Get ready to dive into the comic book realm where heroes rise and villains take the helm. We're here to dissect the stories and the art. On source material, we tear the panels apart.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Source Material Comics Podcast. You would have thought that we were done going back to Charming, but not this time. We aren't just going back to Charming. We are going back in time with Charming. That's right. We are going to talk Sons of Anarchy Redwood Original. Mark Radulich, I want to know why we aren't done with Charming just yet.
We are not done with Charming because I wanted to read through all the Sons of Anarchy stuff. We had done the entire series, and I thought, well, there's all these comics out there. So we did the 6 volumes that encompass the entire Sons of Anarchy comic. We wrote a little song about it because that's what me and you do. We are the Simon and Garfunkel of artificially intelligence-made music. However, I noticed that there was a prequel series out there, and I was like, okay, well, I don't want to just do this all in a row. So, like, in between, we did She-Hulk, we did Batman. Right. But here he is. This is the last of it, and then we are done. We've done everything there is to do with Sons of Anarchy without getting into the novels, and you and I don't read novels. Books are for burning. I
was going to say, is there pictures involved?
There's no pictures, sir. It's one of them word-reading books.
I can get away with calling this a book club, but I'm not officially going into book club territory. I'll tell you that.
There are limits.
So, yeah, we're going to be talking volumes 1, 2, and 3. Sons of Anarchy Redwood Original Comic Series, published by Boom Studios, serves as a prequel to the acclaimed FX television series Sons of Anarchy, written by Ollie Masters and illustrated by Luca Bizzarri. And there is a change in the art as we go through this.
Yeah, that's actually really noticeable.
With oversight from series creator Kurt Sutter, the comic delves into the formative years of Jax Teller and the Sam Crow Motorcycle Club. Set a decade before the television series, Redwood Original explores 18-year-old Jax's journey as he processes grief, navigates familial tensions, and begins prospecting for the club. The series captures the raw emotionality and violent undertones of the original show while expanding on character backstories, offering fans a deeper understanding of the motivations and relationships that define Sam Crow's later conflicts. So I want to ask you, Mark, before we jump into the synopsis for these first 4, what were you kind of expecting getting into this?
It's funny you should ask me that. It's not what I expected. I didn't realize that this was about Jax.
Same here.
Which I'm kind of annoyed by. Like, don't get me wrong. It's good. It's a good series, I think. I like the story that they told. I kind of like the insight into young Jax.
Yeah.
But I thought we were going to get young Clay and young JT.
Yep.
That, if you're like, why did you pitch this again? Because that's what I thought this was. And honestly, had I known it was just going to be young Jax, I don't know if I would have, to be honest with you.
Well,
ultimately, I'm glad we did because, you know, you and I can make chicken salad out of just about anything.
Right.
But bothers me that there was such limited imagination in terms of the lore of Sons of Anarchy, especially in a comic book. Like, this would have been prime JT material. And it's just not there. This is more like, at this point, as I said, interesting insight into Jax, but did we need more insight into Jax? He had an entire series dedicated to him.
We needed something that showed us what developed between him, JT, and Clay. Right. And the strain on the relationship between him and Gemma. That's kind of what I was hoping for, because I want to know we could get ourselves a nice little origin story.
I would have loved to have seen more JT Gemma stuff.
Right. But instead, we got Jax, which, okay, all right, let's see what this story brings about here. The story begins with a young Jax Teller watching as Tara, the love he isn't ready to let go of, step onto a bus, disappearing behind tinted glass. Alone with only the rumble of his bike and the weight of his thoughts, Jax speeds away unknowingly toward a fight that will set the tone for the life he's stepping into. A scuffle at a gas station leaves him bloodied. He gets knocked out, but I beat up the other guy pretty good beforehand. A reckless brawler proving himself in a world where strength earns respect. Meanwhile, Clay Morrow and the Sons of Anarchy make a deal with a wild card named Dan, trading guns for a duffel bag of uncut drugs. But Dan's supply comes tainted with blood and bad business. As the club parties at the Sam Crow Clubhouse, the night swirls with booze, laughter, and the whispers of looming trouble. When Clay gives Jax his first big job to intimidate a trucking company back into line, Jax sees it as his chance to prove himself. But Clay, ever the pragmatist, watches his steps carefully. While Jax wrestles with his place in the club, an unseen storm is brewing. A lone figure in a hooded coat with an upside-down cross prowls the desert, leaving carnage in his wake. I do not think we get a name for this guy. Meanwhile, Sheriff Unser warns Clay that Bad X is hitting Charming Street, sending kids to the hospital, and all signs point to the college dealers nearby. Clay and Tig take matters into their own hands, tracking down a local pusher for information. The club's grip on the town tightens as they send a brutal message to Uzi, the campus dealer, using a baseball bat to ensure their dominance. I think it's used on Uzi and his buddy. I can't remember his buddy's name. Meanwhile, Jax, Opie, and their friend Jonesy slip away for a moment of reckless fun, getting high at a warehouse. But Jax, caught up in the club's growing violence, lets too much slip. When Jonesy asks if the Sons kill people, Jax's fury explodes, beating him and pulling a gun in a moment of paranoia. The gunshot he fires isn't at his friend, it's at the ground, but the damage is done. Jax has crossed the line, and the weight of it settles deep in his bone. As the Sons try to clean up Dan's mess, they stumble upon a brutal massacre in the desert. Bodies torn apart, blood soaking the sand. Dan barely survived, but the message is clear. Whoever he stole from wants their product back, and they don't play fair. Meanwhile, Jax's impulsiveness gets him into trouble with Clay. After his reckless attack on Jonesy, he's benched, stripped of club duties, and forced into menial labor at the warehouse. He bristles the dildo warehouse, by the way.
I mean, where else are you going to send dildos from, Jesse? If you're sending somebody a dildo in the mail, what do you think? A stork drops them off? You got to send them from a warehouse.
You got to think, like, Charming's businesses. One of them, those contributing businesses to the Chamber of Commerce, is the dildo warehouse.
I mean, who are we to shame people for getting what they need with the tools available?
He bristles at the punishment, feeling caged, but Gemma reminds him that Clay still sees something in him if he learns to play the game right. Desperate for escape, Jax and Opie take off on a desert ride, stumbling upon a massive, lawless party in the middle of nowhere. They indulge, drugs, lights, freedom. The high turns dark. As dawn breaks, Opie crashes his bike, nearly dying in the sand, forcing Jax to carry him back to civilization. Back in Charming, the new enemy finally steps into the light. A stranger arrives at the clubhouse with a simple demand. The drugs Dan gave them don't belong to them, and he wants them back. Clay, unwilling to be pushed around, snarls a challenge only for the man to toss something gruesome at his feet. Dan's severed head, fresh and bloody. With a detonator in hand, the stranger warns them 1 week to return the product or things get worse.
Have we talked about how if you were to believe an average episode of Sons of Anarchy, murder is mad easy to get away with?
Yeah, right.
There are no such things as forensics. I'm not even sure there are homicide detectives. Apparently, Charming has like Unsler and one deputy, and they're just interested in drug dealing. People get murdered and buried somewhere in the woods or in the desert. They don't care, and they don't
Cops?
check.
Yes. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Meanwhile, Jax stays by Opie's hospital bed, haunted by what almost happened, but there's no time to recover. He returns to the clubhouse only to find Clay waiting, seething. The final reckoning comes fast and hard. The club got hit while Jax was supposed to be on watch. Yeah, he went out to party. Turns out the warehouse also had a stash there, and because Jax wasn't there, it got hit. He partied while Sam Crow was blindsided, and Clay, already furious with Jax's recklessness, has had enough. He strips Jax of his cut, which I did not realize was spelled Kutte.
That's what I thought of it, because it's a leather vest, so I thought it was a cut out of a leather jacket.
Yeah, strange. He strips Jax of his cut, exiling him from the club. One moment, Jax is a son of anarchy. The next, he's nobody. As the clubhouse door slams shut, Jax is left standing alone, fists clenched, the weight of his mistakes crashing down. His place in Sam Crow is gone, and the outlaw road ahead has never felt more uncertain. There you go. That's issues 1 through 4, our first volume of Sons of Anarchy Redwood Original. Mark Radulich, I mean, you got some notes there?
Opie doesn't look like Opie.
He's got his hair all slick. He's got a haircut, no beard.
We actually talk about that for a second. Well, knowing what we know is going to happen to Opie, how sad and tragic this book actually is.
Dude, I think I sent you a message.
The future. Like, you think about Opie and Jax, right? All Jax wants to do is be a badass biker, and it'll be the death of him. We know that. But it's a life he embraced. It's a life he lusted for. You know, his whole disagreement with Clay is essentially Lucy and Ricky. He wants to go to the club, and Ricky keeps telling him, you have to stay home, Lucy. And he's like, oh, Ricky, take me to the club, Ricky. And he's like, the sooner I go, the better. I want, like, his whole identity is wrapped up in being a badass biker. It's funny because he's such an obnoxious prick about it. When we see him in season 1 of Sons of Anarchy, he's already kind of had some of the piss and vinegar knocked out of him.
Right.
And by the end of season 1, he is starting to become very disillusioned with the club. It's the basis for the entire series from that point on. So season 1, as you'll recall, is sort of the falling from grace in the eyes of Jax for Clay.
Mm-hmm.
So the rest of the series becomes Jax trying to take the club from Clay and change it into something sustainable and manageable, and it becomes the death of him. Early on in Jax's life, as we see in this comic, he idolized Clay, he idolized this club, and he was an obnoxious prick about it. There was a lot of ego involved here. Hubris is the word I'm looking for. A lot of hubris. And Clay kind of has to begin to knock that out of him. He's like, we're not gods. We fuck up and we have to think on the fly. And that's exactly what happens in this book, is they get paid in drugs that were stolen from another group. And now they've made enemies they didn't count on. And now they have to adjust. They have to adapt. And then you have, and I started with poor Opie.
Yeah.
Opie was like, I just want to go to college.
Dude's in college. He is in class, and Jax is knocking on the outside door saying, come on, man, let's go. Let's ditch this. And
it's like his father wanted him to do it. Clay is actively pushing Jax. Gemma is pushing Jax. This is the family business. This is what we do. Like, if had Jax been like, I don't want to be a biker, they'd have been disappointed in him. Meanwhile, there's Piney going, I don't want this for my son. I did this for myself. But like all good fathers, we want better lives for our children.
Right.
And our children are impossible.
And they can be.
Because he can't say no to Jax. Opie is in love with Jax. And he so wants Jax's approval. And he can't say no to him for whatever the reasons are. And Jax is the devil. Everything bad that happens to Opie happens because he followed Jax, or he let Jax convince him to go to Pleasure Island.
Yeah. Yeah.
The book struck tragically because I'm realizing how much better off Opie had been had he told Jax to go fuck himself.
I sent you a message and I said, poor Opie, because we watched what happened to him in the series. And this is just more of that pretty much, because he's even in a better situation here. And, you could just see he's being taken off of that
nothing
path.
But potential ahead of him.
Right. One thing that just occurred to me while we were talking about this, one thing that you could say about the Sons of Anarchy TV series and the comic book series we're reading right now, the one we already did read, Sons of Anarchy is about consequences.
Yeah.
Because of actions that you have taken, because of decisions that you have made. And this one, there's going to be a couple that we talk about. In this first 4, we have an interaction between Jax and Jonesy. So Jonesy, who I don't think ever showed up in the series. So this is a new character that's just really kind of, he's nobody important here in these first 4 issues, but he's just a friend of Opie and Jax's.
Yeah.
And Jax, he's so nervous about being part of the club, and then he ends up saying some stuff, and Jonesy's like, did you guys actually kill people? And then Jax, this impulsive idiot, grabs a gun.
He's a kid. He has the emotional maturity of like a 10-year-old.
Right. And then he almost is going to kill this guy, and he decides not to. And of course, he's like, I couldn't do it. And you're almost like, I don't know. I'm kind of glad you couldn't, dude, for sure.
Right.
But I don't feel sympathy for you because you couldn't. So, I mean, I guess it's just to kind of show you that he has a heart and that he wouldn't do it. But I hate the fact that he almost did. So I didn't feel for Jax in that moment. I felt for Jonesy. Jonesy's the guy I was like, geez, he cried.
Can I tell you how this book does not help me sympathize with Jackson?
Right.
If I don't know what the intention of the authors were, by the end of this, I'm still only rooting for Opie, and he doesn't got this, Jesse. He says he's got this, but at the end of the day, he never had it.
He does not.
Talk about how if we ever get our drug organization going, our criminal organization, Jesse, when the offer to pay us in heroin comes up, and it inevitably will, because it comes up in The Wire. It came up here. It feels like, you make a deal with a criminal enterprise, and it's like, for services or products, you will pay us money. And like a farmer, like a sheep farmer, they're just like, what about bartering? I know I agreed to pay you in American dollars backed by gold, but hear me out. What if we bartered?
What if we bartered with bloody bags of drugs? What do you think?
Cases of heroin and cocaine. It's like, this never ends well. Jesse, I'm going to tell you right now, as you being my lieutenant of this organization, don't take the drugs. We work in cash only. We are not farmers. This is not a barter system.
Their big thing, just like you said, not only is the police wanting drugs out of Charming, that we remember that this gang, the Sons of Anarchy, do not want drugs in Charming, and here they are buying the drugs, which I guess in a good aspect, they have control over it, and they can maybe take care of it and get it out of there.
Clay always thinks he's got control of things. He always thinks he's smarter than he really is. First of all, his head is shaped like his brain, which is a brick. And he always thinks he has more control over things. And if you notice, the pattern with him is he overreaches, and then he ends up creating a mess that they have to dig out of. Bobby and Chibs are like nagging wives every time. They're like, Yogi, I don't think it's going to work out with the drugs. And he's like, no, it's fine. I'm smarter than the average bear. And they're like, but you're not. And this happens every time.
You're playing with fire, bro. You're playing with fire.
Can you name a single plot that worked out where Clay overreached and put the gang in a situation that they just wanted to sell guns for money, not for sheep, not for coke, not for more guns. They wanted cash, cold hard cash for the guns they got from the Irish. And Clay's like, but what about drugs?
Let's change it up a little bit.
Right. I won't let him into Charming, and we'll let Deputy Dog over here make sure that doesn't happen. You can't control, this is my point, you can't control the uncontrollable. And criminal enterprises are inherently uncontrollable. Did you ever watch Boardwalk Empire?
No, I know of it, but I have not watched it. Tell me about it.
So Boardwalk Empire takes place in the era of Prohibition. And by the end of it, they are lamenting the loss of code. Like
like honor?
Yeah. There were gentlemen's agreements between Chalky White, Steve Buscemi's character, and the Jew gangster character. They all kind of operated within a certain code. It was like, hey, if we all follow these rules and stay in each other's territories and work the way that we've all agreed to, we're all going to make money. By the end of it,
McMahon shows up.
Essentially. By the end of Boardwalk Empire, the youth have taken over, and it's just all out war.
Oh,
and those who are left, the old heads who are left standing, lament
the days of old. Yep.
The days of yore when men had a code. Men always have a code, Jesse.
Always.
And no one's following it anymore. I was actually thinking about the bike riders, and they talk about the biker gang having a code that they went by. By the end of it, the guys coming up were so hungry for power and were less honorable than the men before them that the whole thing just falls apart. And it becomes more violent as time goes on. And that just seems to be the lesson in all of this, is that Clay never learns. His ultimate demise, if you go back to the show, is no matter how many times he thinks he can outsmart various criminal enterprises and come out ahead, it only ends with him hurting everyone around him and making the club far worse off than it was. And like Bobby and Chibs know that, and there's nothing they can do to stop him. I mean, Tig will do whatever Clay says. And everything I'm talking about is in these books, because the entire time this is happening, Chibs and Bobby are like, please don't do this. What part of guns for money are you not getting? Clay's like, shut up. You're all pansy, liberal, tree-hugging pantywaists, and I'm smaller than everybody, and my head's shaped like a wall, you know? and even Gemma's just like, are you sure you want to do this? And he's like, shut up, whore. What the fuck's wrong with you? But this is exactly what JT didn't want to see happen. This is what got him killed in the first place.
Right. Yeah. That's a story that's got to be told soon.
It had been told in this one. Redwood original, JT.
All right, my other couple notes here. I wanted to point out the one part where Tig is sitting on the couch with a bag of ice on his crotch, and no explanation needed. Like, Clay looks at him, and he doesn't want to talk about it. It's not explored in the book, but it's a great bit. You know, it's Tig for sure. I mentioned Uzi and Adam. Adam was the other guy that got his knees busted by the bat.
For selling bad accidents.
Yeah. They're not very prominent here in these first four, but people be ready because you're going to hear their names again.
Yes,
At least Uzi's for sure. And I mean, I liked our antagonist here. I thought he brought a nice little air of mystery and intrigue. This guy, African American with the upside down cross on his jacket. We get no name for him, and he's going to show up again next year.
Mirror Universe Punisher.
This guy's killing drug dealers, trying to get these drugs back. I believe he's just a contract guy.
Fixer.
There you go.
He's a fixer. His job is to go get shit done.
Right. Then we got Gemma and her side quest, which I think I didn't bring up here, but she's trying to make sure the books are right
there's an accounting error, and they're being overcharged for parts. And the explanation she gets is, sometimes we charge you for parts, and if we don't deliver them, we'll just get them to you the next one, but we don't charge you for those, except that they are charging her for them. Basically, he doesn't think anyone's going to look, and even if they do look, fuck you. Mm-hmm. But, take your business elsewhere. He doesn't realize he's talking to the mob. Yeah. And so Gemma steals the dog and invents a fake gang to say, the gang stole your dog, pay us and you get your dog back. Brilliant. And he learns his lesson.
He does. That's all my notes for this first volume, 1 through 4. Mark, did you have anything else you wanted to say before we get into the next one?
I think you and everybody else can agree that I have talked plenty.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Real quick before I forget, the creative team, I know I mentioned the artist and writer at the beginning, but I want to give props to the colorist. So our script by Ollie Masters. He's going to be the guy that writes all 3 of these, all 12 issues. Art by Luca Pizzari. Colors by Adam Metcalf. Letters by Ed Dukeshire. Mark, you've read all 12 issues, right? Mm-hmm. As far as the art goes in this first 4, did you have any complaints? Because we know that the art's going to change.
I don't love the way Clay looks. I think the second artist got Clay closer to what Ron Perlman actually looks like. The reverse of that is Gemma looks better in the first part of this, and in the second part, her face is a little too angular.
Okay.
But my other thing is Opie and Jax in the early part of the book look too similar. Like, I was getting them confused.
Opie looking so different, just like you said, man. Yeah. The shaved, slick back hair, shaved sides, no beard.
He had light in his eyes in the future. He had hope.
Right. The influence that Jax has over him, and again, dude almost dies.
I know we're comparing apples to oranges. We're comparing a comic book drawing to an actual actor in a show. But you look at here, and he's just got an aura of hope. And then when you look at him in that last season, when he says, I got this, right before being beat to death in the jail.
Yeah.
And there is no hope in those eyes. He is a walking
dude.
corpse.
He lost so much. He was Death Wish Opie. Like, he wanted at some point. He didn't care.
He was dead before the prison beating.
Yeah.
Honestly, I the more we talked about that show and the more we continue to revisit this particular intellectual property, the more I think Opie died in the car with Donna.
Fair assessment.
Thanks for joining us. All of this would not be possible without W2Mnet.com, so make sure to seek them out for more podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to share, and we look forward to entertaining you again soon.